Hey, everybody. On this episode of the Legends of Tomorrow After Show, we're talking about Season 2, Episode 4, Abominations. We'll see friendships forged, we'll see partners reunited, and then we also see zombies, guys. Let's do it.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
A nice little jaunty tune to lead us into the Legends of Tomorrow After Show here on AfterBuzz TV. We'll be breaking down Season 2, Episode 4, Abominations. And a nice cheery tone, as I say. It's kind of a very special episode of Legends of Tomorrow. We'll get into that as we break it down. I'm one of your hosts, Frank Moran. You can follow me on Twitter at HappyGoJackie.
I am another one of your hosts, Lex Michael. You can follow me all over social media at the Lex Michael.
And I am the other host. I'm Lacretia Lyon, and you can find me at LACRETIALYON anywhere on the internet, since there is only one.
And our fourth member of the panel, Dave Child, he is taken ill this evening, so he will not be with us tonight. But tweet him at MrDaveChild and let him know what you like when you're feeling sick. What's your good favorite homestyle family remedy to cure yourself?
Sure.
I think he'd love those tweets, guys.
Sure.
Yeah.
Give him something to look at.
Yeah, there you go. Yes,
Absolutely.
what everything's going to cure is what ails him.
Is Colonel Sanders fried chicken.
Oh, boy.
I was like, who are you? Colonel Sanders.
Yes. This is an interesting episode of Legends of Tomorrow. Some really dark moments, but some really interesting character building moments as well.
I was not prepared for them to go quite as heavy with it as they did, but ultimately, this episode, more so than any other episode of this series so far, reminded me a whole lot of OG Star Trek. In that they used these sci-fi elements to tell a story about a real human, social, philosophical issue. And I thought it was interesting. They did a pretty great job, all things considered. It took me a second to adjust to the tone.
Yeah, because so far, like this season's been kind of just more campy, more fun, a little bit more upbeat than last season, and then they put in this kind of like a little bit more serious moments here in the show, which is appreciated. It's nice to be able for them to mix a tone, so I didn't mind that at all.
Yeah, to me, it really worked, and especially to tell this story that most people are familiar with, and when they have black characters on the show, it is same thing with the women characters. There were times where you weren't treated equally, so it's really interesting when they bring these things up and sort of reminding people that it does get better. I mean, and that's what Jax said, and it was a really good Jax episode, and we don't get a lot of those.
And I feel like if you decide to take this on and deal with this in an episode, then you should go and deal with it as seriously as possible, rather than just like, oh yeah, we're going to go back to that time and just kind of blow off all these consequences about this time period.
Absolutely. And in an episode that also includes like a roving horde of Confederate zombies, it is impressive that they were able to include some of those more outlandish elements and not lose the respect and the care with which they handled the slavery story.
And interesting that in a show about zombies, and you're worrying about like, everybody could get bit, get infected, get turned. At points, you were more concerned about what's going to happen with Jax and Amaya. I mean, that ends up being the more scary situation than like zombies overrunning the Union soldiers.
And I thought that was such a good use of parallelism, like we kept discussing on Arrow last night. But yeah, it was like, that is a way worse threat than zombies, because you're dealing with human beings being treated like animals. Zombies are no longer human. If you're a zombieist.
Yeah.
And also, too, zombies, I guess, are scary in that they're this mindless, unstoppable force that they're coming to eat you and tear you limb from limb. That's very scary, but it's also, I think it's abstracted enough from reality that it's not as emotionally impactful. You get the visceral terror that you get, and you get it, you watch Romero movies or you watch The Walking Dead, and it's like, they're eating people. But you could put that somewhere in your brain that's more or less comfortable because this isn't a real thing. Very true.
Well, it's almost like zombies, they can't help themselves. That's just like part of what makes a zombie zombies. They're just going to be pursuing everybody as a food source. Nothing inherently malicious. But humans, they're consciously choosing to dehumanize other people and break them down and make them suffer.
And that's what's interesting about The Walking Dead is they use that same sort of, metaphor as, the zombies aren't the real threat. It's actually people.
We are the Walking Dead.
Yeah. Oh, God,
I was waiting for Martin Stein to look at him. Yes.
Marty.
Before we go breaking down the episode in its entirety, though, folks, you can like us on Facebook, give us those 5 stars on iTunes, subscribe to the YouTube channel, also hop in the chat. Lacretia, as you see, has got her computer up, is always our oracle there to hear any of the chat thoughts that you have about this episode in particular or the season in general so far. So yeah, we'll get into it. We start off in the time stream. It's cool to see another ship in the time stream just kind of cruising around. Well, not cruising around. It's not going well for this young time pirate.
No, decidedly not. And like Lacretia just immediately right up top, just this guy's in horrible distress. He's almost certainly about to die, and Lucretia's to my left just laughing.
She just enjoying the time pirate suffering.
Yeah.
But he's from, I guess he got some element called TX90 from 2235. But one of the people on his crew got infected. I wouldn't believe what he did to the little crew. This guy seems like he may have been affected as well. He crash lands back in Mississippi, 1863. And as he gets out of his little safety capsule there, the Confederate soldiers are right around him, and then he starts turning as well.
Yes.
Why they didn't? Interesting that why they had the guns right there in front of him. I see a guy start wigging out at me right there. Yeah, I think I'll just shoot him, especially if he's coming out of something I've never seen before in my entire life.
For sure, and something's clearly not, like his skin is not the right color, and he's making noises, and he's clearly lunging violently at all of us. I feel like you are within your rights at that point.
Yes, just shoot him.
This is one of those times you do shoot first.
though to be fair, we all know now from seeing so many zombie stories in film and TV exactly what one looks like. I can almost buy that they may be so stunned and unsure of what to make of what's happening in front of them that maybe they don't react quickly enough to prevent the first one from being bit. Yeah. Once he's on the first one, maybe you don't want to shoot your buddy, and then he can get to the second one, and so on and so forth. I've seen these movies, dude. I know how this goes.
It works. All right. Yeah. So things don't look like they're going very well there in 1863. Well, again, we start the episode with something that I was teased with, and I thought it was going to be addressed this episode. We were going to listen to finally find out what Old Man Barry's message was. And we just get teased with it.
Not for like 3 more weeks or something, right?
Oh, man.
You got to drag it out because we just love hearing Old Man Barry.
So soon, though, right? I mean, that's where we are, what, 3 weeks away from the crossover? Which I assume that's when we're going to find out what the deal is with that message.
I guess. But, man, it's just like, come on. Let's just, this frustrates me. This kind of like, we can't tell the rest of the crew. Let's just keep the secret to ourselves. And if we have to have another episode next week where they're back in the room again listening, or they're just having a casual conversation in the library. Should we tell him, Gray? Should we tell him? Like, yes, you should have told him 2 weeks ago. That's when you should have told him, guys. The secrets never do well on the show. But they don't. I do like Stein, though. He's trying to, where he tries to play it off with Sarah when she calls in. Why are you calling me Sarah?
I'm turning over a new leaf.
Try new things.
Victor Garber, I mean, it's no surprise when he is as amazing as he is, but he was so very excellent in this episode.
Oh, yeah. The zombie thing. I'm like, dude, it's not Voldemort. Just say it. And then he finally did.
He had such a wide range of emotions that he played this episode, from just trying to be like coy to being downright terrified to just having this nice, really cool conversation with Jax at the end of the episode. Man, just a really great work from him this episode.
And the stuff, and someone in the chat, I believe their name was Matt, said, Rick and Morty, I mean Ray and Marty. I love how he's like, Marty, can I call you Marty? No, and he just keeps doing it.
But luckily they get Sarah calls him out to the library and says, guess what, the ship crashed in 1863. We got this message. Let's go back and stop this guy from being an aberration in time. But we're leaving Ray behind because you got no suit, buddy.
All right. I understand from a strategic point of view why maybe Ray's the guy to leave on the ship at this point, but given how hard he took the loss of his suit, maybe couch it a little better in like, we need a scientist on board who can work, like really hit the we need a vaccine angle of this and not the you're useless in the field angle of this. The boy's having a rough couple days.
I know. Sarah's not, I guess, the most warm. I mean, and I think that's what makes her a good captain, but it's just like, Ray had his feelings a little bit hurt there. And you could tell, but I love how he just made the best of it. He was like the best little den mother, like the sack lunches.
Yes.
And I was just like, that is adorable.
I did
he
like
should
that.
have been my scout leader.
I did like that he made him lunches, then he's talking to him on the comms, kind of giving him little details. Oh, it's balmy 58 degrees. You guys are actually in Hydes County. And they're like, all right, let's just turn this off. Enough of this chatter. But then we see that they find the escape pod. Mick's excited because he can just burn something there. It's like, all right, we're done. That's great. And then they see a man running from some Confederate soldiers, a black man. And Vixen says, we got to help. And she's not going to wait to get the approval. She's just off and running. And it's kind of the newest member of the team kind of the rogue element. She's
Sure.
like, I'm part of a cool team, Justice Society of America, guys. I do what I want.
Right.
I don't listen to you legends.
It's like, you people aren't that great.
And they stopped this man. They stopped the Confederates from getting him, and found out that he's Henry Scott, and he's dispatch.
Yes.
Which he is a man giving information to the Union.
Yes, that is correct.
And then the zombies attack, guys.
And then the zombies attack, as zombies are wont to do.
Yes.
At the least opportune time, because they're not really considerate of the plans of others.
Damn zombies.
And so, I mean, we see that poor Henry Collins, he does get killed. Henry Scott, excuse me, gets killed. And in his dying moments tells Jack that he's got to make sure that that satchel gets to General Grant, because there's something at the Collins plantation, which are Confederate plans about their attack, and General Grant needs those desperately.
Yeah, we get to, oh man, we need to not lose the Civil War really quickly.
Yeah. We also find out the other problem, though, too, is that Mick ended up getting bit during that fight. And, how did he not know that he got bit? Why doesn't he bring that up to anybody? Like, oh, guys, I got bit. I think you would know, even as muscular as he is.
Maybe, but I also... Okay, the hang-up for me isn't that he didn't tell anybody, because I imagine that even if you get bit and you see you got bit, if you're Mick Rory, you're probably like, whatever, and you just have a beer or something. But he recognized the zombies as zombies and then didn't tell anybody.
Yes.
That's the part that seems a little odd to me.
Yeah, I feel like that they just sort of made that in an element just to sort of put that whole Mick, Marty, Ray thing into motion. And it was like, I guess I'll forgive it. Because, yeah, Mick would have said something like, they bit me, like, do something. I don't want to be a zombie.
Right.
Like, he does later, but...
then it kind of basically breaks up into our three storylines for the episode. We've got Jackson and Maya, they're going to go to the Confederate house to try to find those plans. We've got Nate and Sarah going to talk to General Grant, explaining to him what the whole zombie situation is. And then we've got Stein and Ray trying to cure Mick after he, in the first attempt doesn't quite work, and he zombies out. And so now they're locked down on the ship, and they can't get out to provide any sort of backup for those guys. So out of those three storylines, which ones intrigued you the most?
Oh man, that's tough, because they're clearly doing three incredibly different things, and they're doing them all, I think, very, very well. There's no Victor Garber getting to show that range of emotions in any of these other stories, but there's also no watching Steele himself out and blow up all the zombies in the other storylines, and there's also no really thoughtful and searing look at the ugliness of slavery in any of these other storylines. So it's really hard to compare them against each other for me.
Yeah, because again, I'm sort of crushing on Citizen Steele and Ray up there, because they're both just that little adorable hero guy. I was like, God, you like separate them, so then how do I choose? Because even Sarah started to care about Nate a little bit. I kind of liked that part.
It's interesting to see the kind of the friendships that are being developed between Nate and Sarah, and I think even certainly after this encounter, Jackson and Maya.
Yeah, what I really like is, in the first episode with Maya as Vixen, Animal Girl, they sort of seemed like they were testing her with Ray, but then, last episode she had a good scene with Mick, and this one with Jax. And I'm like, good, because Ray had the romance last season and really didn't work. So if they're going to do that, I like that they may be going a different direction. Because I'm like, or friendship. I mean, it doesn't always have to end in let's have sex.
Absolutely. And I really thought the way they handled all of the individual character pairings in this episode it all really worked for me. Like, considering the number of character pairings that we had to track, and the number of different story elements, the number of different tonal elements that we were trying to juggle in one episode, I'm very impressed that any of it worked as well as it did, let alone all of it.
Because I think there were episodes last season where I felt a little frustrated by the way they try to serve everybody with the story, and it would never quite work very well. And this episode I thought was a really good example of giving everybody a storyline, and still they had a little character arc through each one. And I thought this was a really successful version of that.
And none of it felt forced to me. None of it felt contrived certainly no more contrived than any episode of television, because it's like somebody wrote this, somebody made this up at some point. It's all a little bit contrived, but no more so than any other story you're going to encounter.
Yeah, everybody was where they should be, and that's what it seemed like for the whole season of this show. Last year there was a little bit of a misstep sometimes with who was paired with who, to go on separate missions, but it just seems like they just know what they're doing now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because it's like everything feels right.
Yeah, and for me, it's certainly not to pick on the first season. I mean, we talked about it while it was airing last year, our likes and our dislikes maybe, but it's also, this is an incredibly tricky type of show to write, and it's such a big and diverse ensemble, so many different personalities and so many ways you can pair them and it not work, you know what I mean? So you have to figure out, okay, where is everyone best utilized? And I feel like, yeah, we're seeing it now, and things can just be allowed to happen.
No, it just because even though like you think like, well, hey, Nate didn't have a lot to do in this episode, he still had those moments there that still made I felt like it was a satisfying episode for him, even though he wasn't featured as prominently as he was in like last episode.
Right.
Yeah, I mean just because even at the end where he just talks to. Off camera, you see him talking to General Grant just to say, hey, Sarah's my captain and she's having trouble ordering men into battle. And just to see that little pep talk with him, General Grant and Sarah at the end of the episode, just prompted all by Nate. It's like that was a nice little moment from Nate as well.
Yeah, I'm really liking him. He just fits right in, and it's not just because he's adorable. But yeah, and he's a historian. He knows all this stuff. So that's a good skill set to have.
I guess I'm going to just go off on this tangent because it's been kind of, as I watch this episode here for a second, so I just want to ask you guys, before we get back into breaking down this episode, so far this is our second episode, yes, as episode 4. So no, actually, our 1, 2, 3, so our third episode without Rip.
Yes.
How, for me, I am not missing Rip at all. How do you guys feel?
I tend to agree. I mean, now when Jonah Hex shows up, but Rip better be there. But it really does feel, because Stein is sort of feeling the Rick roll, or Rip, sorry. It's like, Rick roll, can you do it now? But yeah, he's filling that role of sort of being the coward, but not at the end. He sort of came out of it. And yeah, it does feel a little like we didn't really need Rip Hunter. But isn't he a time master?
Yeah. I also have a hard time saying I really feel like he's missing from this dynamic. That being said, I like Arthur Darvill a lot, and I'm hoping that Rip does return at some point. But I would be perfectly satisfied seeing him maybe come in and out, maybe as an ancillary member. I think we've got a really great core unit now, and I think everybody's really gelling in a way that we hadn't seen before.
And I think the hardest part, too, is when he comes back, is certainly this team has had a lot of time on their own to kind of solidify as their own unit, to see how Rip can't just come in and just assume that he's captain again. To see how he'd fit back into the dynamic would be interesting.
And what I think is cool is Sarah assumed the captain's role, and everybody was good with it. And you see repeatedly why everybody's good with it is because she's clearly a better leader.
Yeah, by far. But I kind of think that was a good direction for the show. It's like Rip started out as a leader, but you realize he's bad at it. So we got to get a new one. But yeah, I feel that there is a place for Rip Hunter. But yeah, a lot of the chat is saying they don't miss Rip either, and they feel bad for it. I think that's funny. Yeah, Ivan said, it's like, I feel bad for not missing Rip.
Yeah, because like said, Arthur Darvill's great.
We love him,
and so it's just the way the character, at least in the first season, just oh man, there were some stumbling blocks with him too. So having him removed and just letting the rest of the team kind of just move on without him, it's just like, for me, it's just showing like, wow, I guess you could do the show without having Rip Hunter.
Yeah, Jonathan Dibbing says, I feel like Rip was holding them back. And I think that they even make that comment. And even Rip himself in the premiere sort of realizes that maybe he wasn't the best leader, holding them back. And I think that's sort of, their journey right now.
Yeah, I think you really needed a Rip Hunter in the first season so that the team would assemble and go off on this journey. But once they're off on this journey and they've all settled into place, you don't need a Rip Hunter as much.
Yeah, 'cause I think the hardest thing is, that's getting back into the first season, so we'll move off this, but just when so many things were tied to Vandal Savage, whether it be Kendra and Carter, also Rip as well, so many things were a linchpin on that they were kind of carried it throughout the entire season, so it just, say Vandal Savage storyline had been done like in the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then you had the rest of the season just to kind of do more adventures like this going on, maybe a different dynamic by the end of that first season to what we have now, and you wouldn't mind having Rip still in the mix and stuff, but everything was just so heavily tied in with Vandal that it just made it just so tough for them to do anything else other than just everything's got to lead to Vandal.
Sure.
So anyway, guys, that was just my little tangent. Let's get back into season. Hey, we're out talking about season 2, episode 4, right? Yeah.
Time travel.
That's right. So we have Jackson and Maya. They get back to the Confederate house and they overhear a woman about to get treated poorly for.
Treated poorly.
You know, guys, it's 3 white people on this panel, right? As we've all talked about here. It's like, who are we to be talking about this? But yes, it was interesting to see, like, Jax and Amaya having that discussion, like, this is terrible, but if we stop it now and our cover gets blown, then we don't get the bigger picture, which is these plans that can save the whole Union Army, and then history won't be changed.
Yeah, I really liked that Jax was the one to be mature and to step in and say that because, she was a member of the JSA, but they were in one time period. They don't know how all this time travel and stuff works. And, it just shows the growth in Jax's character. And I really like that because, he's a young guy. He just had sort of gone on this mission with Stein. He got roofied into it.
No, very true.
Yeah.
But I also love, too, that there's no wink, there's no joke, there's no we're going on a mission. Like, no, this is an incredibly serious moral quandary that they're in, because it's this question of, well, do we allow this to happen to this one person if it means protecting that many more people in the future? And then there's a time travel stuff and it gets really complicated, but the joke and the winking, it all stops. Like, we've dealt with really big, like, world ending, like nuclear missiles, all of that stuff with a bit of a wink and a smile between team members. But I really appreciated that. Like, no, this is not something to, like, wink and grin about. And I like that the show treated it as such.
Yeah, and it's, man, that is such I certainly can't imagine what it would be like to be in that situation. But to know concretely that, yes, we need to succeed in this mission or otherwise history's doomed.
Yes.
So we do you let one person suffer? That's got to be. It's so hard to think about in the abstract. And I feel like as Jax's course of the episode, he goes from thinking about it more abstractly to also then being a little bit more closely associated in the mix and getting a chance to see that up close and personal and find out that it's not so easy to remain objective about everything you're supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah, and I really liked that character development moment. He's like, no, this is the real aberration. And I thought that was a really poignant, line. And it really goes back to, just that whole time travel trope of, you see these horrible things. Don't you want to stop them? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just to see when Jax does get into the house, he disguises Henry Scott's disguise was to be a slave and go in the house. And just realizing, so it's one thing to know slavery existed, but I guess even I would know just like what are the social norms of that time period and what would a slave be allowed to do. So when he bumps into a woman and then just apologizes, realizing that just the fact that he just touched her and apologized, that was like, what? Whoa, holy cow.
Right.
Yeah, so, oof.
Oof.
Yeah. Oof. I feel like Lex really wants to talk about this.
I know. Like, I mean, it's very heavy and it's very, very, very difficult to watch. And so, and as such, it is difficult for me to know really the best way to talk about it, other than as you say, oof.
Yeah, it's they're monstrous people. I mean, and it's not something played for overhyping it or trying to make it like, oh, we're gonna make him a stereotype. It's like, no, sadly, people were this cruel back then. Oof. But in the end, the way everything comes together is that they finally decided Jax says, we're freeing them as well. They're their aberration, as Lacretia said.
Yes.
So, but then the zombies, you got the zombies, guys, as we're trying to break out of the plantation. And we see
because you still got the zombies.
Yes. And interesting that because even though they get back in the house because Jax and one of the slaves are going to find the plans because the one slave says, I think I know where they are, and we see Colin still alive as everybody else is kind of getting torn apart in the house, and he's got guns firing them away, and Jax says, hey, give us some guns too because we can help you. We have to work together. And the guy just still. The face of zombies. You're going to give it up and worry about like, oh, I'm not going to arm a slave.
Which, as a storytelling and a character decision, I really appreciated, because I think having that character have an abrupt change of heart, even in the face of something like zombies, I don't think that would have been believable. And I think you're stepping back off of how real that aspect of it is.
Yeah, it would be cheap and just too easy to go there, in my opinion. It's like, no, this guy really was a piece of crap, and he was never going to change, so it was cool to see him getting eaten by zombies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not going to have that moment like, I learned a lot from you today.
Yeah.
I'll change my ways. I'm like,
yeah,
that's not
we
gonna
didn't
happen.
need that. That's not something that would have happened.
No,
People
it's
were
not.
crap.
This is not a problem that even if zombies are running at you trying to eat your face, this is not a problem that just goes away like poof, all gone.
Yeah. They do. Jax does burn up all the slaves and everybody. Jax does not burn up the slaves. He burns up the zombies, guys.
Yeah.
Whoa. Oh boy! All right. he burns up the Confederate
can edit
soldiers.
that out,
Yes,
Bruce.
and collets, and they escape and they get back to General Grant. They're safe though because during the course of the battle, Sarah's able to prove to General Grant that you got zombies. You got zombies afoot.
I love that she just brings a hit.
Yes.
Like, that was so badass.
And I also appreciate too that General Grant bought it. Like he didn't take any more convincing. He's like, there's a head with black goo coming out of it that's like talking to me right now. This is clearly a problem we should address.
Yes.
Yeah, and General Grant looks so familiar to me, and I forgot to look up the actor. If chat roll knows, I'll try to look it up on IMDb really quick. Because I was just curious, because he was really good. I thought,
Yeah, I like him.
yeah.
That's probably what
Who
have
is
made
that
him
guy?
such a heavy drinker later in his presidency. Because I had to deal with zombies, guys. You don't understand this. Hey, don't judge me.
That's true. I know this is one of those things that we're not supposed to think too much about, but since they went back and they fixed it so that the Civil War ended the way we're aware it ended, but there were still zombies, right? So now, were there always zombies? Because there were zombies that one time when they fixed. You know what I mean?
That's true, because you would think that, I guess there were probably, there would be zombies. And you would think zombie stories, because they said they would, as Nate tells Sarah, like, they haven't heard that word for another 70 years.
Right.
I think that's definitely changed by this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's somebody that they came out of that battle and said, I'm going to write this story. And you know that the first zombie story came out, like, 1865.
For sure.
Yeah, 1864 probably. It's like, yep, I got a novel to write, guys. That's it. So I do like that. And the battle kind of goes not so great because they realize that General Grant still wants to save something for the battle the next day.
Right.
And that's always that dilemma. It's like, how much do you want to, try to save your lives now, and how much do you want to worry about the battle tomorrow? But I feel like you got to really invest in tonight, otherwise there's not going to be any tomorrow.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, but the plan is, hey, guess what, Nate? You're gonna lead these guys out to a box of nitroglycerin and blow yourself up along with all those zombies.
So maybe not the most complex or nuanced plan, but as it turns out, not a bad one.
I thought that was cool because I during the course of the episode, we were like, all right, these are people that get you get bit and cut or something like that, infected, then you turn. Who's the one person on the team that cannot get bit or cut or infected? And that would be Steele.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I really like that, even General Grant pointed out, he's either the bravest soldier or the dumbest one. And Sarah's like, I feel like she should have said the jury's still out on that.
I would argue that it's not binary. I would say you can be both incredibly brave and not very smart at the same time.
Although I was wondering, because I felt like that scene just drew out a little long, because he gets out to the jumps on top of the box. Everybody starts dogpiling on top of him. Like, nobody's biting him yet, because it was a little bit before he transformed. I'm like,
right,
yeah,
somebody had to have bit this guy by then, right? Because he's just laying there.
But then they got Steele. But I better not think about what I've been questioning about Citizen Steele since last week. About
especially not where no biting and no. Anyway,
I get a little Brody Bruce with the.
We don't. Oh, it's so.
And
upsetting.
I love how people and then Pride, Prejudice, and zombies happen.
Yeah,
that's right.
Lydia, that was pretty fine.
And their other third storyline, as we talked about, is Stein, Ray, and Mick.
Yes.
It's always great when you get to see. Well, Mick. We'll first talk about like Stein, because Mick, of course, the virus, the vaccine that Ray makes doesn't quite work. Mick turns, and then Stein basically spends a lot of the episode just slamming Mick. How dumb he is. This guy's a dummy. He can't even turn on a light.
Stein is such a dick.
There's a part of me. I agree. Like when he was saying, he made the comment about how he's not even smart enough to turn a light switch on. For a second, I went, dude, like really? Like now? Really? Yeah. But then I went, you know what? Maybe this is a bit of a defense mechanism. Maybe it's like, if I talk about how dumb he is, I'm going to be less terrified that he's going to eat my face.
So Stein is a teenage girl?
Did you watch the same episode I did?
Yes. I'm just saying. It's like his defense mechanism, or he's just a dick.
Because it made me think, like, seeing Mick now compared to first season and his experiences as Kronos, do you still feel like they're writing him post-Kronos so you can really notice the difference between this Mick and the version of Mick before he became Kronos?
Yeah, I see that they still have some of the Kronos Mick in there, and I like that. Because, before they had pretty much just portrayed him as such a meathead, but Dominic Purcell is so much more than that, and I think that's what they recognized, and they wanted Mick to be his own because I think they sort of knew that Wentworth was going to be on all the shows and not really a part of the Legends of Tomorrow. But yeah, I think that that's been a good character development for Mick, and I think that the friendship with Ray is really helping too.
I agree completely. I really enjoy that relationship, and I agree. I see a difference. Mick on the battlefield is still the same crazy berserker that he was before, I think, and he continues to relish the ability to do that. But I think when he's not engaged in fisticuffs, he's a lot more, if not measured, at least a little bit more stable than he was before.
Yeah, because I would agree, because it seemed like pre-Chronos, it was all about, I just want to watch something burn and just grunt a lot. And that's good enough for me. That's all I need to do. And it especially makes sense when you're with Captain Cold, because he's, of the two of them, the brains of the operation.
Yes.
So now that you've taken him off the canvas and he's been through that time as Kronos, they'd be able just to tweak him slightly, where he's not as smart as Cold, but he's definitely much more evolved than just like burn and grunt. Burn, let's grunt.
But when he does just burn and grunt, that is still fun. But yeah, and Lydia, a great name here, Dickenstein.
Dickenstein.
It's like, yeah, that's what we'll call him.
Ew.
All
Or
right.
Marty. He didn't like Marty. It's either Marty or Dickenstein.
So they do realize, though.
Hashtag burn and grind.
Hashtag burn and grunt. Burn and grunt.
That's my ringtone now, guys.
So they realize, and this kind of hey, I guess using this vaccine as an injection, maybe not the best way to use this. What if we turn it into an aerosol, make it a spray? That might be more effective.
Sure.
So Ray comes back into the med bay, get a fire extinguisher, and at no point do I see him actually transform this vaccine into a spray. All of a sudden, the fire extinguisher is just laying there, and it's all good to go. Like
The vaccine was just what you find in a fire extinguisher, as it turns out.
I missed a step where that vaccine got into the fire extinguisher. Did anybody notice that?
Yeah, it was just like they just didn't show that. They didn't feel like doing the whole CSI. Like, we're gonna go through this whole process bit. I guess I don't know, but it's just like, yeah, he didn't have time to do it.
Because Ray jumps in, immediately gets cold cocked by Mick, and the fire extinguisher gets knocked out of the way. I'm like, all right, so when did this get into there? I don't understand.
It was when Ray was on his way to the floor. He really quickly was like, and he put it in there, and then he hit.
But I did like Ray and Stein's talk there, where, I mean, Ray's just basically confessing, like, you know what, I'm terrified. I don't think I have anything to offer the team right now. I've lost my suit. What do I do? If I'm so terrified, we can get it together. I can overcome this. You can overcome your fear of zombies.
I don't know that it's a perfect one-to-one, but yeah, it was a really nice scene for sure, and I really love the way those two actors played off of each other, and again, tremendous relationship building between the two of them, and I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I like how Marty acknowledged that Ray was smart, because he always tends to put him down,
Yes.
As with everyone, but as we say, that's his insecurities.
Yes.
But yeah, I was like, he's like, oh no, we're both smart. He's gonna feast on our brains forever. I was like, what? Dickenstein.
And it was in that moment, that conversation that he had with Stein, that I felt like, I could see Ray being I could see some of the leadership potential finally coming out in Ray.
Yeah.
So before, I never really saw it as much. Certainly the Boy Scout doing everything bad. For that moment, I was like, all right, yeah, I can see a little bit of gravitas to Ray, that I can see him stepping up.
Leaders make sandwiches.
Leaders make sandwiches.
But don't do sprouts, guys. Ask your crew before you leave.
But he learned.
Yeah.
He learned by the end, but never assume sprouts, guys. Never,
For a second, when he said, Mick at the beginning of the episode, he said, somebody bit me and my sandwich had sprouts on it. And then a minute later, he falls down for half a second. I was like, this dude really does not like sprouts.
Yeah. Maybe he was allergic, Ray.
Yeah, I was like, oh.
That's what happened.
Sprout allergies.
And Ivan Soto has the best couple name for Rick and Ray and Mick. I was like, I already put them together, but Heat Ray sounds much better.
Heat Ray. I like Heat Ray.
Oh, Heat Ray. Very nice.
That's the new team.
Yeah.
Yeah, Heat Ray.
Ray.
Yes. We get down to the end of the episode, as Lex was saying, that, of course, Ray goes, checks in with Mick, and Mick regrets already asking, like, hey, you doing all right? Like, oh, why did I even ask? I did like that moment there. But Ray just opens up to him as well. And I thought this was a really cool scene with Mick.
Yeah, I enjoy that Mick genuinely appreciates being saved from being a zombie. Yeah. And it's a weird thing to think about, but I liked it.
He's like, thanks, bro. You saved me from being a zombie. It was just so cute. And then him giving him the gun, like, I need a partner. I'm like, oh, bro, man.
Yeah, so I wanted to know both, like, what was your reaction reaction to the gift of Captain Cold's gun? Like, how do you feel about that?
I thought that was cool. I'm curious to see how that plays out when we see Snart come back later this season. To see how some, like, from whatever, if he's coming back, like, just from that moment, he's been, propelled somewhere in the time stream. So he's coming back and realized that, wait, why are you passing on my gun?
Right.
Yeah, he's gonna be super jealous.
There's that aspect of it, but then for me, there's also I love the idea that these two guys are going to be working together more. I'm very much looking forward to seeing that, and of course, the image of the twin beams shooting out. I miss that so profoundly, and I love it. It's amazing, and it makes me so happy every single time. That being said, there's a part of me that would rather Ray take the tech from the gun and do something else with it than just use it the same way that Snart did, because we've seen that. And that's somebody else.
Yeah, and the chat kept speculating that maybe, we have Citizen Steel, maybe Ray will become Citizen Cold, and you know how I feel about that storyline, and I keep wanting, Snart to be mayor against Oliver, run against him. So let's leave that for the other shows. I think, Ray with the gun is just sort of a temporary fix.
Sure.
And because I think he'll get a different Atom suit that's going to be more like the comics. Because I think the reason they got rid of it is because we kept complaining about how it wasn't like the comics.
That's right. I think specifically my frustrations with that. Thanks, guys. I feel like the writers' room is listening to this on the Friday afternoon during lunch. Hi, guys.
Hello.
There you go. It's like, all right, Frank's complained enough about this. Let's get rid of that costume.
Yeah, and I feel like it was a good way because we had Nate with his hemophilia, and then we turned him into Steel, and now there has to be sort of that outsider, and I like that was part of Mick and Ray's conversation. So at this point, Ray is the one without a power, but he is so useful in other ways, and like the gun sort of gives him something to do. But Ray is not going to just accept being Captain Cold.
Right.
He's gonna want to be his own man.
Yeah, right. It would seem to entirely backtrack on what he said he was seeking at this point, which is a sense of self and identity. If he just becomes Captain Cold 2.0, that wouldn't really track for me.
But I also like that all of a sudden all he needed was just a gun. All he needed, and Sarah's gonna let him back out in the field. Like, so it could have been any gun. It doesn't have to be the Captain Cold gun. Didn't they
just like a week ago find a room full of the things?
Jackson Stein said, "Oh, hold on."
But I think it was the gesture of, "Hey, I want you to be my partner." It was just a nice gesture.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you save Mick's life and turn him back into a human. He's gonna be like, "All right, let's burn and grunt." But I do like Mick's explanation is like, being an outsider is great. You can tell everybody to screw off, and I liked how he called Captain Cold like the greatest outsider he ever knew.
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah. So I'll be curious to see how this team develops. And I do like the idea of, like, more so we had all our issues with the Ray and Kendall relationship last season.
Yes.
Not a particularly exciting arc for either of them. Definitely. So the idea of this is Ray trying to figure out his identity and just kind of figuring out, like, what is Adam 2.0, so to speak.
Sure.
Be. And I'd love to see. I think that's a much more interesting story that I'm more interested in seeing Ray go through this season.
Absolutely. I agree completely.
Now, by the end, which for me, I would agree with what Lacretia said, that if it ends up just being more like the traditional comic book version, where we get to just see him just in a regular kind of like blue and red suit, that's no tech, and he can just shrink, that'd be awesome.
Yes.
You guys good with that?
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
The only thing that I was like, well, okay, the hang up to that is that the cool thing about him having the Atom suit when he shrank is that he could fly, so he can get everywhere under his own power.
Right.
You take that away, it's tough to get him to places.
Then you need an archer. And I'm pretty sure we can find one. There's
they
like
know
10
at least
of them in
one
this.
of those.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. But
Yeah,
he
but
has no time for this,
for
guys.
time travel.
I got no time for time travel.
But I also, too, I'm wondering, they've got a time travel ship. They can literally go to any place in time that has existed, exists currently, or will exist. Can't he just get any tech he wants to make whatever he wants?
That's true.
So couldn't he do a happy medium where he's got the OG suit, but he also flies? Like, he's got little like boot gauntlets where he rockets up.
Yeah, he needs the dwarf alloy.
You take like Mr. Miracle's hover discs.
There you
and
go.
You give him that.
There you go.
Oh, that would be cool.
There
Give
you
him some
go.
hover discs, guys. Writer's room. There you go. Hey,
it would
good to
make
see you again,
Frank
guys.
so happy.
Give him some hover discs. Yeah, just borrow from Mr. Miracle, guys. That'd be great. Or just doing a whole episode where we just see Ray just shopping.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta pick up all these supplies, guys. And then he's also like, packing lunches, like, because he went to shopping.
Dude,
He's
yeah,
like, such a good mom.
I would watch that where like they stop off in the future somewhere so he can basically go like to a mall, like a fancy technology mall,
yes.
and they all go with him. And it's supposed to be one of those episodes you always got on like every old TV show where like they're like just going and doing some fun and family excursion, but then they run into some wacky misadventures along the way, and like Heatwave gets into a fight at the food court and stuff. It's gonna be great.
Legends of Tomorrow, family vacation.
That's right.
Amazing.
Metropolis, 3246 Black Friday.
Oh,
Yeah, guys.
Make it happen, guys.
Done. Come on.
And Jonathan Demming, I love you, by the way, for bringing up Sidney Palmer. I never let that die.
No.
That is a character that exists, and we need to see it.
That's very true. So we wrap up the episode with Jax and Stein getting back together. Because Stein, of course, with their psychic connection, could tell that Jax was distressed a lot during the episode. But I really liked the conversation they had when they got back. And just, I mean, it's always difficult, like, as a white man trying to help, a black person that's gone through this terrible experience. It's like, how do you really empathize? But just want to just be there and just listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like too that I think Stein really likes to think of himself as paternal at times, and is usually that's just not how he behaves, and that's not really how he interacts with people. But there was a moment where Frank, I agree with everything you just said, and in that scene I was like, oh, like Stein right now is being the Stein wants to be.
Yes.
And I like it genuinely moved me. I feel like a cornball saying so, but like it did. That worked for me.
Yeah, after being such a dick about Mick, I'm rhyming here apparently. That was such a good, like, all right, we don't hate Stein. He just says things he shouldn't, but
Right.
he's really a good guy.
He means well.
Yeah.
He's just a bit of a pompous ass.
Yeah.
No, and take that away. Those moments there is just there's a warm, gooey human underneath all that. Thank you, Steve.
Gooey human.
Speaking of humans, Boo69P says, bring Human Target on Legends of Tomorrow. He's freaking amazing. And
Bring human
I
target
agree.
on all of them.
Yeah, that guy's awesome. Will travel. We need more of that dude on TV.
I will trust anything that Boo69B says. She was my only help in the breaking down
MacGyver.
MacGyver. Thank you, Boo69B. I love you. I love you so much. So we wrap up this episode. Let's get into some predictions about what we're going to be seeing in coming weeks. We've already got a tease about
your AfterBuzz TV.
Predictions.
it's the 80s next week, guys.
So awesome.
In the promo for the next episode, the quick shot we got of Damien Dark in his Miami Vice outfit got my soul is singing.
We clapped because it was like, yes. Because the more Damien Dark, the more campy Damien Dark, the better.
I don't disagree.
I like, this is holding me over till I know when Cold and Malcolm Malcolm comes on and Cold comes back at the mid-season finale.
Yes.
But Damien Dark will hold me over for the just fun, crazy stuff.
But don't you hope? My biggest hope for Malcolm Merlin during the course of this is that his time with the Legion of Doom will give him a better hand.
Yes.
Oh, then this weird like
And the
knight,
fabulous hand?
like this almost like
Yes,
like
that's
his Sauron hand that he's got going.
Ugh, please, come on, Eobarthon, bring him back something from the 25th century and give him something cool, please.
real.
Guys, we've already got past metal gauntlets, guys. You primitives, you apes. Here's a cloned human ham for you, Malcolm Merlin.
Yeah, we either get him just a clone hand and it should be an evil hand, because those are always fun stories like Lindsay on Angel or Scream Queens, or like, you know how Ash has the chainsaw hand? He can have the bow hand. I don't know how that'll work exactly, but you know what? You're an archer.
Well,
You gotta do the bow.
hang on. So if the bow is here, you can't.
No.
So you attach it, right, and then you get the arrow out, and then you just like pull it back. And
Yeah.
It's super cumbersome, but I bet once you have a system in place, you could.
Yeah.
You
I think it
could-
would work.
You could not die for about 7 seconds.
That's right. You just got to get the reps in, get
Yeah.
used to it, get your own
Yeah.
system. That's
Yeah.
right. Here's I think we're gonna also have Lance Henriksen as Obsidian popping up in the 80s,
I'm
which is
always
awesome.
excited to see Lance Henriksen.
He is just so amazing. Millennium.
Now, if anybody's seen like the little on Facebook or at Twitter, you see like the little still pic there of Lance teasing this episode, and he's getting that cool, sweet fighting stance. Man, look at him. He's still got it.
He's so cool.
Go, Lance, go! Yes.
That
But
dude
anything
taught himself to read, man.
he can do anything.
Yeah.
He can do anything.
Love that guy.
He also created artificial life forms that look just like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did that too. That was based on true.
Actually, those films were documentaries.
Yeah, that's true. Aliens versus Predator. Yeah, that was true.
That really happened.
That really did.
Yeah.
Any other predictions from you guys, or any hopes as we so far 4 episodes in? Any hopes that you have for the season?
Well, so we're seeing Damien Dark again next week. And this is just my own impatience to get to the really comic booky geeky stuff, but I hope we start introducing more of the Legion of Doom plot sooner rather than later, because I'm itching to get there.
Yeah, Legion of Doom's so cool, and like we say, we need a wild card.
Yes, but to be fair, I'm really enjoying these relatively self-contained adventures that we've been seeing this season so far. So I'm happy. This is a good place to be.
No, it's really nice, and I think just like the additions of Amaya and Nate have been so good to this team. And
Agreed.
I really like where this is going. But just guys, please just pull the trigger on this Uncle Barry's video from message from the
Uncle Barry.
yeah.
Uncle
Just
Barry.
tell us what it is already, guys. Please stop dragging this out. I'll be sad next week if we see this again. But that is gonna do it for this episode of Abominations on the Legends of Tomorrow After Show. But like us on Facebook, give us those 5 stars on iTunes, because why, Lex?
Why I that's how I live. I'm actually drinking a mug full of 5-star reviews right now,
That's
and
right.
it's almost empty, and I got to refill pretty soon.
So guys, you want to fill that cup up for Lex. You can also like us, give us those 5 stars on iTunes. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks for hopping in the chat, everybody, sharing your thoughts about this episode. If you want to continue the conversation even after the show's over, Lacretia, where can they find you?
You guys can always find me at LACRETIALYON anywhere on the internet, since there is only one.
I am Lex Michael, all over social media at the Lex Michael, and if you're a fan of DC on the CW on ABTV, I'm all over that block. I'm on Supergirl Monday nights, Arrow Wednesday nights, here Legends of Tomorrow every Thursday. We're on Ash vs. Evil Dead, me and
we do other
Lacretia,
stuff.
Sunday nights, and we also do the Comic Book Exchange on Book Circle online. So many wonderful platforms to come nerd out with us. Please do. We love you.
There you go. That's the only other platform that Lex and Lacretia will let me play with him in these comic book worlds. That's cool, guys. Whatever. I get it. You can follow me on Twitter at HappyGoJackie, and don't forget to tweet Mr. Dave Child, your family remedies there to cure what ails you. He's going to need that, guys, because we don't know how long he's got to live. All right? We'll see you next week for another episode of the Legends of Tomorrow After Show here on AfterBuzz TV.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Hashtag Save
Dave!
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.